This weekend is actually a really exciting event happening here in Philadelphia where local organizations such as Juntos One Love and the Philadelphia Student Union have been partnering with the U.S. Human Rights Network to sort of shed a spotlight on some of the human rights issues that are happening in the Northeast region part of the country.
When we're talking about immigration, detention, deportation, incarceration, we're talking about a large system that has been built out to exclude a whole community from having any power in this country.
The Right to Return campaign has 3 locations of work, right? So the United States, Cambodia, and the United Nations. Because what we see in the strategy of the Right to Return campaign is this foreign policy agreement between the US and Cambodia. And so in order to have accountability for the US government and the Cambodian government, we need to go to the United Nations, right? So there has to be like another party that is involved in our strategy. Working with the U.S. Human Rights Network and our local partners here to bring United Nations rapporteurs to Philly was part of moving the United Nations piece of our strategy forward. The last thing that we just want to share with you is the documents that we gave you all on the panel, which is laying out really what we feel is the human rights violations that our community has experienced over the last 40 years by the U.S. government. And as you can see, it begins with Article 3, the human right to life, liberty, and security that was violated against our community by the secret bombing campaign of Cambodia by the U.S. Article 25, our human right to food, shelter, and health, beginning with all the political upheavals in our home countries, coming to the United States, then being resettled in communities where no one had the ability to live their full human dignity. Our human right to education, human right to equality before the law, in terms of the education systems in this country and the criminal justice system. And lastly, the human right to due process, human right to family unity, and the human right to fair arrest, detention, and exile, all displayed in the immigration laws of this country and repatriation agreements signed secretly by the United States government and other nations. And finally, our human right to democracy, being that we had no say in what that repatriation agreement looked like as a community when it impacted us completely and wholly as human beings. And so we really are putting to you all on this panel to take a look at what it means for the U.S. government to be secretly signing repatriation agreements with nations across the world without any accountability or transparency, and what that means for communities everywhere. Thank you.
Most laws that hold people accountable retroactive to the law are usually illegal on the face of them. They're desperately unfair. People don't understand the consequences. People plea bargain when they may not have plea bargained had they known that the consequence could have been deportation.
Because we are poor, we are refugees, and we don't have access to legal representation and do not know about the criminal justice system.
Families being denied visitation rights after they've been deported, I think is a clear human rights violation. People being deported not having access to legal counsel by law, that's a clear human rights violation.
What do we as a country stand for? And how do we have the right to tell other countries to change their ways when we are not looking inwards? The beauty of this country is if you can manage to engage enough people around an issue that's fundamentally unfair, I think we respond. It's a matter of creating that economy of scale where people are mobilized enough to deal with it.
What we're going to do at this point now is file that urgent appeal to the United Nations when we're in Cambodia. An urgent appeal is something that civil society, which is community, lodges to specific United Nations rapporteurs. It details out all the human rights violations that communities feel have been held against them.
So we're going back to Cambodia this November. It's part of, we're bringing our allies and partners to Cambodia to uplift our Right to Return campaign. We also want to support the capacity of One Love Cambodia, so that way we can connect all the deportation issues across different color lines.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.